Hey everybody, it's LavenderTowne, and today we're going to be talking about different art shortcuts that really held me back and how to avoid them so that you don't make my same mistakes. Starting off, we're going to talk about skipping or being lazy about textures. This is something I don't see getting talked about necessarily a lot, but it was actually a huge game changer for me, and it's still something I'm a little lazy about even today, unfortunately. So hopefully this will bear as a positive reminder for myself as well as you guys. But the first thing I want to talk about is skipping texture, like basically ignoring what you're actually drawing. So when I used to draw, and often sometimes when I'm still drawing, I don't really pay attention to the fact that I'm drawing things that have different textures. So let's say I'm drawing a character in a skirt and a shirt and, knee socks. Her knee socks are going to look like they're the same texture as her skin, which is probably not true unless she has some really freaky clothing. Anyway, the point is that when you just draw everything the same way, it's just not going to have as much impact as if you pay attention to like what the fabric probably feels like or is made of. Another big thing is like not paying attention to the fact that these things have actual mass and weight. So I often used to just draw a line to demarcate where the sock and the leg are separated. Now here's the problem with that. If you actually look at your socks on your feet, assuming you have socks on, you will notice that because your socks are actually a physical item, they will have a little bit of like a thicker line away from your leg. I'll show it on the right side, the way that I recommend actually drawing it, but you're basically just making sure that the contour of the leg does not smoothly go into the sock or, the collar of the shirt, because the fabric itself actually has mass, so it has to go beyond the line of the leg. The other thing you want to think about is, like what fabric are we talking about here? There's some fabrics that are very, they kind of will just look like the left side example, like a high quality cotton. It doesn't reflect light in an interesting way. It's not like particularly fuzzy, so that's fine to use sometimes, but it can be a lot more exciting to think about like putting your characters in, let's say, like a fuzzy sweater, which is what I'm going to draw the like positive example on the right side in. Just like making something a little fluffier that has a different kind of line art style around it. You don't want to just put in little dashes to show that it's fluffy on the inside of the body of the sweater, but also actually breaking up those lines on the outside, like particularly around her shoulders, the bust, and the sleeves, and just have just show the texture on the outside. It adds so much character to it, and I feel like I can actually feel a sweater. Like I feel like this is a sweater that would shed everywhere. And I know it, it's something that feels more like specific and real than the kind of like just white long sleeve shirt that I pretty much just clearly drew because I wanted to put her in something and I wasn't thinking too hard about what that was. Same thing with the skirt, Of course, there are skirts. You can get like a spandex skirt that doesn't have any particular interesting features, but why not put your character in something that looks like a specific clothing item? Like a pleated plaid skirt is going to have a lot more interesting energy to it than a skirt that basically just exists so that your character has clothes on. That's basically all I'm really talking about here. Again, like with her earring, on the left side it kind of just looks like a big old weird piece of macaroni, whereas if you actually think about how like a metallic object reflects light and has much stronger high contrast kind of like shadowing, all you really have to do is like take that gold color, go dramatically darker, and do a couple lines of it through the shape of the earring, and then make sure that there's one area of highlight that's really bright white. That will make it look metallic. If you wanted to do this really properly, you should probably look up the specific earring that you're trying to draw and look at reference images, and then you can get a really specific way that the like shading and the light look, but you can kind of fudge it a little bit and it will still look dramatically better than like basically ignoring it and just coloring it in flat. I'm realizing now I literally forgot to render her shoe, so please just don't even look at that, or actually let's say that was part of the whole project here. Look at how different it looks compared to the rest of her outfit. Like look how boring that is compared to how everything else is rendered. It honestly doesn't take that much more time. I find it a lot more fun, and so yeah, I just recommend it. If you find yourself like not caring about this stuff, or just like trying to do it as quickly as possible. Like, give yourself at least one illustration or drawing to like really put a lot of love into each of like the tactile differences of the clothes and try to make them look specific to like a clothing piece that you might actually find in a store, and just see how that goes. I think it might add a lot to your art. Okay, next up I want to talk about the dastardly hiding hands pose. Now, I know if you're an intermediate artist, you probably don't literally do this anymore. This is a classic pose for beginners, and I used to do this like crazy, but even if you're not a beginner, even if you're in the more intermediate zone, you might find yourself finding sneaky ways to hide the hands or make them kind of more obscured so that you don't have to really deal with their complicated, annoying anatomy. If that's the case, I highly recommend that you try thinking about the hands first in your pose. I'm going to draw some little stick figures later that kind of show how much the hands by themselves without even a facial expression can emote. Like, think Italian mode. Talk with the hands when you're drawing your character, and think about the ways that pointing the hands and the fingers in different places can actually guide the viewer's eye. This can be so beneficial and add so much energy to your illustration. It is definitely worth it. And I'm going to say something controversial. I will stand by this forever. I think that drawing an ugly hand in your illustration that's posed in a way that's interesting is better than hiding the hands altogether. I think that the overall pose is more important than maybe the specific, like maybe she's got like sausage fingers a little bit, or they just look a little long and weird, whatever. I still think it's better to try to utilize the pose in a more active and exciting way, even if you don't feel like you're great at drawing hands. I have a short about drawing hands, by the way, if you want to check that out. But in general, the point of this is just like, make sure that you're not avoiding drawing hands just because you don't want to, and try to push yourself a little bit next time you're drawing and see how it can help, because honestly, other than the face, I feel like my eye goes to the hands first. Like, it's like the face and then the hands. So if you don't involve them at all, if you're always shoving them in the character's pockets, or like kind of showing them by putting them on the hips or something, or falling into a default hand pose like a peace sign or something, just like see how it goes pushing that a little bit, and you might be surprised at how much it adds. Okay, next I'm going to talk about the nefarious 3/4 bust pose. Now, I want you to look at your sketchbook and look into your heart and tell me how many of your drawings are basically just a 3/4 bust pose. This is the most common, probably, compositional setup for a lot of like beginner/intermediate artists. It's fun and nice because you can really focus on like your character's hair and face without having to worry about stuff that's like less fun sometimes, like the positioning of the arms and the legs. You don't even have to worry overly about the outfit. You can really just get right to the stuff that's the funnest to draw, which of course is fine. But on the right side, I'm going to draw a series of 4 illustrations to offset our Brady Bunch over here, and I think it will become pretty clear that when you switch things up and you try other compositions, it will make your overall body of work so much more interesting and so much more fun, not just for the viewer, but also probably for you. Now, at the top of our right side examples, I'm going to draw something that's remarkably similar, but I'm just going to position the camera up above the character's head. The perspective here is not perfect, don't look at this for too long, but the point is you can still really focus on the character's face, but already it becomes so much more dynamic if you have this kind of like more exciting angle where the camera is looking down and we're getting some kind of crazy forced perspective. To the side, we're actually going to do a super close-up of the character's face, and we have the hands in this image as well to help guide the eye back up into the face. It's very like strong and dramatic to be this close, where we're even cutting off like the chin and the top of the head. It has quite a big impact, I find. Under that, we're going to have 2 other drawings, one of which is a character where the background is kind of more of the main focus and the character is only a small portion of the illustration. Obviously, this is super useful if you're trying to become a professional artist. You need to be able to draw stuff like this. where, you know, the character is not like the only thing that you've drawn, and you really are like placing them somewhere where they feel like they're in the world. And then next to that, of course, we have two characters interacting. I find that characters who are applying any kind of like force to each other, it just adds so much interest to the drawing. And of course, that doesn't mean like punching necessarily. It's just like any interaction where they're actually like physically like contacting each other, or like their energies are coming together, not in like a spiritual way, like literally like the energy of her leaning in to press her cheek against the other girl. You know, it just adds a lot. And I think just by drawing these different kind of compositions and layouts, you can tell that there's just so much more energy on this side. I'm laying out the characters. They're just going to stay in complete black and white. I'm not going to do any crazy coloring or shading. I'm just going to put a gray wash on everything that's not a character. And I think you can clearly tell why one side is more exciting than the other. So I highly recommend forcing yourself out of this like kind of habit of drawing the 3/4 bust pose if this is something you're falling into, and just see if it makes you feel more like excited about drawing or having more fun with your art over time. Next up, I want to talk about having a default body type. This is something that's really common, and just to be clear before I even get into this, I was so guilty of this. I literally only drew like stick skinny characters for the majority of my art career, I would say. It's really hard to break out of, especially if you feel like anatomy is really intimidating and hard. When you get the advice to try drawing other body types, it's really easy to sort of like have a negative reaction to that and feel like, you know, this is just the world I'm creating, this is just my art style, like I don't have to represent everyone, you know, those kinds of like gut reactions. But the honest truth is, it's fun to draw different things once you know how to do it, and the worlds that you're able to create are, you know, going to be a lot more interesting if everyone doesn't look the same. So clearly there's lots of professional projects that get away with doing this. Anime is notorious for having like basically the exact same body types for everyone, especially the girls, with only changes to like the height and the cup size. But I recommend just trying to add in like even just having like 3 main archetypes. So that's what I'm drawing on the right side. You know, you don't have to be good at literally everything, but being able to draw like sort of more of an extreme ectomorph, an endomorph, just like a variety, you know, like someone heavier, someone really tall and skinny, someone more hourglassy. You know, these are kind of more standardized ideas about what female body shapes can look like. Obviously, you can go way farther with this, especially if you're having fun, you know, learning lots and lots of different ways to draw the body. But even just adding like 2 new kind of body types when you're used to only drawing one, you will be amazed at how different your character lineups will look just by having like that much flexibility. So start small, you know, don't get overwhelmed. You don't have to know every muscle attachment. You don't have to get like really crazy about anatomy, but just being able to like build out different silhouettes, even in a minor way, even starting slow, you might find that it makes your character designing so much more fun and interesting. So, you know, don't be like me. Don't wait a super long time to really like start practicing this. And I find that you'll probably have a really good time with it in just a little bit of practice. So those were the 4 worst shortcuts that I used to follow and that I recommend avoiding. I hope this was helpful for you guys. Thank you so much for watching till the end, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much to my members and patrons, including Among Us Skibbity, Kristen Kobitz, Kira Kira, Gold Pikachu, Skitten2, Yume Lily, Jamie C, Data, Misty Raven, Artist James, Lauro, Foxglove, Random World, Lily McFarlane, Becca, Casey, Elliot Graham, Anastasia Eve Siva, Viet, Graveyard Moss, Grexiest, Olia, Maddie Momo, Brandon Stark, CB, Lucy Amajiki, Live Live, Ravens Crow, Salsalat, T Hill Music, Jabber Dabber Doo, Kadaria, Astral Fox Art, The Expressive Poker Face, Subaki, Cutie Pie, Ice Cream Pal, Kola, JJ Jade, and of course, Blah 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 Blah.